Ready? Alright, next we have Ian who's going to tell us about environmental factors that contribute to harbor and gray seal haul-out.
Thank you, Cal, and welcome to Appledore, everybody. So before I begin, for those of you who have been on the island, you've probably been aware of the gulls that inhabit the island. But those of you for the first time, you're probably a little overwhelmed by how many gulls are actually on the island. Now, what does this have to do with seals? Now, for those of you who have been on the island, you're aware, but those of you who haven't, on some of these gulls, there are bands on them. And those bands allow us to know an immensely amount of information about these gulls, from the population, where they live, the children they have, where they go, etc. All of this is known because of these bands. For seals, on the other hand, this is significantly not the case. How we conduct population assessments is by aerial and boat surveys, and this has been done since the 60s. And while these boat surveys capture the hauled out seals, they don't capture the entire population because not all seals haul out at the same time. So what studies have done is estimate factors that are in the water versus land, and then create estimates of the population as a result of that. So for instance, the gray seal population of the Gulf of Maine has been estimated between 329,000 to 682,000. That is a giant range, and this can be shrunk more significantly if we have better assessments. And the reason why these assessments are so important is because that knowledge helps government agencies as well as local fisheries determine what conservation efforts they should employ with these seals, and how much these certain prey by the fisheries, certain fish that are caught by the fisheries should be caught. So scientists have studied seals. These are the main reasons why seals haul out. The main reason is for rest because they do travel a lot, but also during certain point of the year they have their kids for nursing and pupping, and they molt at a certain point. So and also being in the Gulf of Maine, since it's warming, there's a lot of seals here, so they like to interact with each other. And also, since they are not apex predators, they do get eaten by sharks, so they will haul out in an attempt to escape. However, these are the reasons that we know about very, very well. The stuff that we don't really know about as well are the environmental haul-out drivers, such as abiotic conditions like air and water temperature, the season, disturbances, and the time of day. For instance, this unicorn woman here. This is right off Duck Island. This actually happened. She was right next to Duck Island and disturbed multiple seals. So, for my talk, I'm going to be focusing on 3 of these because I'm fortunate to have been part of a 7-year project going on that occurs every summer. So the summer is a constant, and we always go at low tide because that's been the convention since the 80s to take them at low tide. And unfortunately, the prey abundance is not well known for this region, so we can't look at that. But that's good for future studies. So these are the 3 that I will be. These are the 3 in particular that I will be looking at in detail. And that leads me to the questions that I'll be looking at. The first question in particular is, what do these abiotic conditions have an effect on the haul-out individually? Air temperature, water temperature, and wind speed. Then, to make future population assessments more effective, I want to look at what time of day we should be taking these surveys at. Because if we can figure that out, we can get a better sense of what the population is like. And then lastly, since there are so many vessels that go around Duck Island, I want to know what effect those vessels have on the seal haul-out, and even more specifically, the different types of boats, if they have a different effect on them. So my 2 species of choice are on Duck Island are the harbor seals and gray seals. The harbor seals are on the left and gray seals on the right. The harbor seals are also known as the common seal because they're the most widely distributed phocid seal in the world. Their characteristic features are that they have those V-shaped noses. If I have a pointer, I'll be picking that up. And they also have relatively short flippers. They are monogamous, meaning that these seals only have one partner throughout their life, and so all these seals are relatively the same size. And their breeding season, which is when they have their pups, is in May and June. The gray seals, on the other hand, on our right, are also known as the horse-head seal. Because of the difference in their head, it's much more horse-like, signature feature. They also have wide apart nostrils like us humans, and they have longer flippers in relation. They In contrast to the harbor seal are polygamous, meaning that the males and females are different sizes and they're different colors. And their breeding season is in January and February, so unfortunately, we do not know if pups occur on Duck Island. So how did we do all this? So my partner Katie and I, as seen in the picture on the left, we would go out 2 to 3 times a week, and we would conduct surveys, boat surveys around Duck Island. Prior to the survey, we would write down all the abiotic conditions, such as air temperature, water temperature, and wind speed, weather, and sea state. So then we go on the boat, and our marine captains at shoals take us around the ledges, where one of us photographs all of the ledges, and the other person is writing down the photos that correspond to that ledge. And this is the track that we normally go on. And then once we come back, all the way around, once we come back to Appledore, we come down to Kiggins, we upload all of our photos, and then we calculate the numbers of each species that we see. And then we also write down the unique findings observed, such as entanglements, injuries, and infections of these seals. So now after 7 years of this data being constantly recorded, I wanted to now look at these specific conditions. Now back to our question, what do these conditions have an effect on the haul-out size? So to go into first, we go on air temperature. So now I'm going to show you a series of graphs where harbor seals will always be on the left, and harbor seal counts on the left, and gray seal counts will always be on the right on the y-axis. The x-axis in this case is air temperature in degrees Celsius, and this is plotting the counts observed at all surveys since 2011. And the blue line here is the lowest line, or the locally weighted scatter plus smoothing, meaning that it's taking the average of all the specific areas and making a line out of it. And the gray area is the 95% confidence margins. I kind of don't know how to explain that, maybe I'll help you with that later. And as you can see with both of these charts, it's relatively smooth, and there's not a lot of, with the data points being all over the place, we can't make conclusive evidence that just air temperature has an effect. Water temperature. This is the same chart, harbor seal and gray seal, counts left and right. And then this even more specifically, the line is relatively flat. There's not a lot of variance going on at specific temperatures. And lastly, wind speed. Wind speed, until about 20 knots, it's the flattest line that I've observed. However, after 20 knots, it steadily decreases. But notice the lack of data out there. So this is something that future interns that want to look at this would definitely consider looking into, because by the time it gets to 23 approximately, it's almost at 0. So that may be something to look into. So the next thing I wanted to look at was the time of day, and if this had an impact. Harbor seals again on the left, gray seals on the right for the counts. And what I did was I separated all of the known counts on their surveys, and I put it into 3 different times of day: the morning, afternoon, and evening. The morning between 5 o'clock and 10 o'clock, afternoon between 10 and 15 o'clock or 3 p.m., and evening between 3 p.m. and 8 p.m., 15 to 20. And harbor seals, even though the highest is in the morning, it's relatively even across all times of day, with a slight decrease as you go from the morning to the afternoon. Whereas if you look at gray seals, there's a significant trend showing that they haul out most in the morning. And that was very, very interesting to look at. The last factor I looked at was vessels. And throughout, if any of you have been around Duck Island, there are hundreds of lobster traps around Duck Island. So lobster boats, as seen over there, are all around Duck Island. And we hypothesized that the lobster boats, since they're there year-round, the seals would have gotten used to these lobster boats, and that they would show that they would still remain hauled out even when these lobster boats show up. We hypothesized that when the wreck boats and commercial boats are around, there'd be a significant decrease in the haul out versus lobster boats. However, when I actually plotted this out, there was no separation. As we can see on the x-axis, we have the type of boats observed. So we have when there was no boats, just lobster boats, wreck boats, both lobster and wreck boats in the same survey. And then when unidentified, meaning that past surveys, they didn't specify what boats were observed, they just wrote boats. So harbor seals again are on the left, gray seals on the right. And For both harbor and gray seals, when there were no boats present was the highest mean count. However, when looking at the different types of boats, lobster boats were around the same or even less sometimes than some of the other boats. So there was that not effect that we were expecting them to see. The gray seals still get impacted by boats that are around the ledges. So to wrap everything up again, so what we can take out of this is that the abiotic conditions, such as air and water temperature, they don't have an apparent effect. Wind speed also didn't have an effect until about 20 knots, but that, for future interns, is something that they can look into is after 20 knots, if there is a slight decrease, if that's like the threshold for seals. Gray seals, as compared to harbor seals, haul out significantly more in the morning, and there's a definite trend as the day goes on with their haul out, whereas harbor seals, it was relatively even across the day. Both harbor and gray seals also haul out significantly more when there's less of them. They haul out more when there aren't any boats present, and then the type of boat does not have an impact. If there is a boat, they will haul out less often than when there is one. So looking forward, where future interns can take this is that we should continue surveys and looking for changes in these trends. We should monitor the levels of human interference around the Duck Island even more, and potentially even, because when we monitored the boats, it was only during the survey when we recorded it. We can record whether or not we see boats hours before we do a survey, and that can take into account. We can look at that later on. Also, besides these things that I've looked at, we can also look at other possible drivers of haul-out, such as predator avoidance and the prey abundance in the area, and injuries, entanglements, and infections. Shoals recently just got a shark pinger out around Duck Island. So if tagged sharks, which are the seal's known predator, if they go into this area, we can figure out if seals are hauling out at a faster rate because more sharks are present. Because since the Gulf of Maine is warming, sharks may be entering this region. And I'm not sure they're entering this region. I wanted to thank my three mentors, Dr. Bogomolny, Dr. Visiak, and Dr. Setti, and I wanted a special thank you to my partner in crime, Katie, for putting up with me this whole summer and being a great partner.
Is that tough?
Thank you very much. Any questions?